I'd like to call this meeting of the Human Resources Committee to order. It's Monday, September 25th. We're a little bit late. I apologize. It's about 12 minutes after 6. We're at Nashua High School North, and Mrs. Oden, who was part of the interview team, is going to introduce our candidate.
Thank you, Mrs. Ziem.
Hold on 1 second, please. We just want to get this recorded.
Okay.
Thank you.
Technical difficulties. Everybody hold your breath.
We're good at that. You want to take the roll
thank you.
first?
Okay.
Mrs. Oden, we didn't call the roll.
Okay.
Sorry.
No, that's okay.
So, who, you're going to call the roll, Mrs.?
She's got the book. You want me to do it?
Yes, we seem to be.
Okay, taking the roll. Mrs. Ziem.
I'm here.
Mrs. Oden.
Here.
Dr. Murataki is absent. Mrs. Hohensee is here. We also have Dr. Mosley, Mrs. O'Gara, Dr. McKinney.
Dr. Mosley's not here. I'm sorry. I said
Okay.
Mosley.
No, and Mrs. Fitzpatrick.
We're all confused tonight.
We're all here.
We're all here. So,
George, me,
we're,
And Mr. Farrington, too. Forgot.
Kaufman.
And Kaufman.
that being said, I think we're ready for Mrs. Oden to introduce our candidate.
Okay, yes, I had the pleasure of sitting on the interview team for the interim assistant principal at the high school, and we were lucky enough to find just a diamond, and she is a Nashua High graduate. She's working in Connecticut, and she's coming back to Nashua to work in the school system where she had gone through all her years of education. So welcome, and I want to introduce Heather Lucy.
Please come down and have a seat, and we'd like for you to make a few introductory remarks for the listening audience and for those of us here. Please.
Thank you for having me. Yes, my name is Heather Lucy. I spent a lot of my educational time in Nashua. We moved here in 7th grade. My father had been in the military before that. Was the last graduating class of Nashua Senior High School, and was fortunate to go to Connecticut to start my educational experience. I had a great experience there. And since graduating with my bachelor's in English, I went on for my master's in teaching, secondary education, and then did a master's in health after that. And have been fortunate to work in 4 different learning institutions, a 2-year community college, a 4-year private college. I've also been at a high school for 6 years, and then I've coached at a different high school for 5 years. So all of them have been very different and unique, diverse, but wonderful experiences. And I think they've allowed me the professional opportunity and growth that I need to come back home and help serve the students of Nashua.
Well, we're delighted to have you come home. We hope you stay home.
Thank you, me too.
Continuity is a good thing. The other members of the committee now have an opportunity to ask questions. Mr. Kaufman.
Sure.
Hi, Heather. How are you?
I'm well, how are you?
Good. So I have to tell you, as I said when I first came in, we were the 2 people in the back who were kind of just sitting there, not saying anything. But I wanted to comment. I wanted to thank you first for the amount of preparation and time you took in preparing for the interviews here at the Nashua School District and North in particular. You probably know our website better than most people in the district, and that just tells me that you believe in preparation and that you're thorough.
Thank you.
And committed. So, I mean, compared to some other people we've seen in the last year and a half, you are, I would say, one of the most prepared people, at least in terms of what was publicly available and things like that. The other thing that intrigued me about your comments at that time, you spoke about goals and you had a planning mindset. I'm kind of reading just a little bit of the notes that I took. So I'm curious if maybe you can expound on that. One of the things we have on our plate, hopefully in the near term, will be some kind of a strategic planning process. Right now, it's a big bubble in the sky. There's no definition. But I'm curious what experiences you might have had, if you've done any strategic planning, and what might you be able to contribute to us going forward as we plan things out for the next few years.
Okay, thank you. I understand that we're about to go through NEASC here in this district, and that's something that I have a lot of experience with in Connecticut. I've sat on a visitation team. I also got to help write the director report on the visitation team, and I also just recently, about 9 months ago, wrote the 2-year follow-up report for my school district. I know when NEASC comes in, sometimes people get a little bit leery. However, it's a great opportunity to examine what's currently going on in the school system and what can be improved. And in 2020, there's new NEASC accreditation standards. So currently, the 2011 operating standards and indicators are in place, but any visits that come after 2020, and one of the new pieces that's involved with that is a growth mindset. So being able to say, this is what we're not doing so well on and how we want to grow and the resources that we will need to do that. So certainly in terms of a strategic plan or having that growth mindset, I can help through that lens. I also feel it's important if I were to come in to listen, observe, be approachable, be visible at many things, and not just come in and try to change a lot of things that are going on. So I think it would be important to get a grasp on the culture, the community, the students, get a pulse in the situation before I could really help craft a plan moving forward. But I would certainly see my role as to be an instructional coach to support the students, faculty, and the initiatives and goals that the principal has moving forward.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Are there other questions from any board members? Mrs. Hohensee.
Thank you. I also would like to thank you for coming to our district to interview and coming up here 3 times. It's a long haul, and as Mr. Kaufman said, you were very well prepared. You had answers at your fingertips, and I think you're focused, and I think you'll do a great job.
Thank you.
And this will be your first official assistant principalship, so I will be supporting that.
Thank you.
I was one of the things that had intrigued me about the NEASC. We actually had we had a little introduction from Mr. Burns, and with a strategic plan, I agree with Mr. Kaufman. It really is. It seems like the ideal time to do it because there will be, I would hope, and it certainly sounded like it from the introduction we had, that there would be a lot of comments that might really give us an idea of where some of our needs are. So I'm looking forward to that process. But I guess you're such a lovely lady and so personable.
Thank you.
That it makes me wonder if you know what you're getting into with these discipline. Tell me how you feel about discipline. Are you ready for that challenge?
I am ready for that challenge, and again, without naming the 4 places that I've been at, because I understand this is a public forum, I've been associated with some districts and schools located in tough areas with some strong behavioral challenges. And I've always felt that it's worked to my advantage to, number one, instill a sense of community where all voices are valued, where there is a safe, comfortable learning environment, where students know that they're not going to be judged, and it's okay if you're wrong, because I'm never perfect, nobody is, and it's really helped shape the forum and the foundation for people to be open and comfortable with that. Now, of course, yes, there are behavioral distractions or things happen, but my first approach is never the yell, get upset, get angry. It's to have that conversation, because most times something is either going on in that student's life that could facilitate that outburst or that need for some emotional support. So it's having that constructive conversation. We're also starting in our school district restorative practices. So besides just doling out a consequence for a certain type of action, there's also the restorative piece. So it's a conversation and what led you to that point, how could it be different depending on where the situation occurred, if it threatened the learning space. We're starting some restorative circles. So re-entry back into the space where the student can actually say, I made a poor judgment, and there's a conversation amongst the classmates or peers involved in that setting, so people feel comfortable with that. I've really found just being authentic and real has worked well with the students. They appreciate that. I've always been an athlete my entire life, so I believe in team approach. That's how I've been teaching. That's how I would be as an administrator as well. I've found myself in leadership positions on those teams, but I'm always a part of the team. So if students can buy into, we're all a part of the team, and I'm your coach, but I'm going through this with you, it's very helpful.
Restorative is a wonderful word, isn't it?
Yes.
When you said it, I've always thought that people are not disposable. We have to be able to help them back up.
I agree.
And so the balance is, the balance can be challenging, but you seem prepared for it. Are there other questions? No? Well, you see, everybody's in love with you.
Thank you.
No, thank you.
I'll work hard, I promise.
Oh, well, we look forward to seeing more of you, and feel free to come to our board meetings and share with us as you learn about our district. And I'm sure it will be quite different from being a student and being on staff, so that will probably be interesting for you. But
Mrs. E?
yes, oh, I'm sorry, Dr. Mosley.
I just want to add one thing when you're done.
Absolutely, go for it.
First of all, I just wanted to make this public, but acknowledge Heather's, I would say, her tenacity and her willingness to be a part of this team and this family. Not to get into the details, but over the last 3 days, Heather has, and I don't even know the mileage yet, but certainly she has gone from Nashua back to Connecticut to Sacred Heart, back here, conversations with us, conversations with Donna, back down to Connecticut to make sure that she got her certification before this meeting. And grant you, we were having the discussion on Friday. So you can imagine the amount of time and dedication she put into making sure that this meeting happened and that she was prepared for this meeting. So I would just like to thank you personally, and I'd like to use you as a case study when somebody say, well, I don't have time to do this, I want to do this and that.
Always time. There's always time.
I appreciate your tenacity, and I really mean that, to just make it happen. I don't know how to say it any better than that, but thank you.
Thank you.
I think he used a good word, too, family. We're family here, and welcome to our family. We look forward to getting to know you better and working with you for the betterment of our community.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so
Be very
much.
grateful for the opportunity. And I do need an oil change. The light just went on, so the miles have been accumulating.
I can only imagine. So I know it's been a long 3 days, and I really appreciate it.
No worries. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And do we have a motion?
I move to approve the nomination of Heather Lucy, interim assistant principal in Nashua High School North for the 2017-18 school year at an annual salary of $83,000.
Second?
Any discussion, questions, comments? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Welcome again.
Thank you.
Yes, we're delighted, absolutely. And now do we have a motion for personnel recommendations?
I move to accept the personnel recommendations, the revised personnel recommendations dated September 25th, 2017.
Is there a second?
Second.
Are there any questions, comments, concerns? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. And finally, on the agenda, we have a discussion on policy BDEB, and I believe Mrs. Hohensee was going to make some comments about that.
Yes, thank you. This is the policy that we had temporarily put into effect for a couple of the interview rounds, and it just adds one sentence: every member of the board shall be invited to observe all rounds of interviews of candidates for these positions. These positions mean director and above, including the principals. So it's just that one sentence we want to add to BDEB.
Is there any comments, questions, concerns? Seeing none,
I'll
do you
move
want to make a motion?
I'll move to amend it as amended in our packet.
Do I get a second?
Second.
Again, questions, comments, concerns? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Is there any further business to come before this committee? Mrs. Oden?
Motion to adjourn.
Oh, I have a couple
Oh,
things.
Just a minute.
I'm
You have
sorry.
something?
It's hard to write and think.
Okay, well, one at a time. We'll do her first. and
Okay.
then-
As to the process, this is just discussion, no motions, but I went through 2 rounds for the principal and assistant principal. And I just trying to figure out, I mean, I want to know, like, in advance. I know everyone is different, and sometimes you get one candidate go through, and one time you barely eke out one good candidate, sometimes 3. But if you have more than one, I just want to know what the process is. Are we sending from the search committee? Are they supposed to be sending to the superintendent one candidate or more than one so he has a selection? Because in the principal search committee sent 3 up. This last one, my understanding, and I could be wrong, was just 1. So that way it almost, not that there's anything wrong with this candidate, this was a great candidate, but I'm just trying to say, is there a consistency with the process that we send 2 or more if we can, or is it just whatever comes out of the committee? That was my question, just so I know what to anticipate in the future.
Mrs. Oden?
I would just say, from my experience, sometimes we have 3 viable candidates, sometimes we have 2, and then there is often where you have one that, is exceptional. But I think usually it has been left to the pool as to the candidates that were moving forward, as to how the second interview goes.
Yeah, the first time the committee asked the superintendent, and he wanted choices, and he got 3 choices. And this time I was hoping that, again, we were doing the choices approach, but we didn't. The other thing I was wondering is the selection of the committee, and I know we're now doing random pulling out of a hat certain teachers and things like that, which is a big improvement to the same old people over and over again. Some of them are great, but it doesn't give voice to some of the teachers who've never been on a search committee. And there have been some people that are on consistently, every single one of them. And I'm just wondering if we're conscious of that and making sure that there is variety. And then the other thing that was sort of disappointing is we had a parent representative who was also a staff member. We had a student who was actually a student. But I think if we're going to put a parent on there, it shouldn't also be a member of staff.
Can I clear?
Go ahead.
Yes. That was a last-minute decision because the parent who was not on staff, who was going to be on the interview team, had an emergency at work and could not make it. And matter of fact, as the board member on the committee, the head of the interview team approached me and was counting numbers and asked if it would be okay. And I said, absolutely, because we needed to move forward. But
Right.
they did have
Normally
a
they
parent there that just could not, called that morning and said, I cannot make it.
Okay.
So, thank you.
And I think
That
that's
helps.
happened before, actually. We have had, and I think it goes to the thing that so many of our parents today work, that being available
Right.
on the timeframes that we need sometimes can be challenging. Mrs. Fitzpatrick, would you like to add anything? You've done a wonderful job. I very much appreciate the objectivity that you brought to the process and to the level playing field. I think that Mrs. Hohensee is referring to some past practices. I certainly have not seen the same people over and over. It's been refreshing to have more of a, I agree with Mrs. Hohensee, it's a great thing to give everybody an opportunity to get part of the process. So having said too much, I'll let you speak.
My goal with the process is to have representation from all the different stakeholders in the school community and in the district. So I think having administrative assistants on the team and having other administrators on the team and students, and usually the ones that I've done, there's been parents available, but that's not always the case because, like you said, they work. But the goal is to be transparent about this and get the best candidates. And I believe that our process has been working for us. I mean, I think that Ms. Luzzi is an example that the process is working. And is it perfect? No. And frankly, I've only been here 2 months, so I'll probably continue to make mistakes, but I'm trying not to.
I don't mean to criticize. It's much, much better than before. Before, I couldn't even question or ask things to understand the process. It was just lock solid, and I am seeing more turnover, and it's just that, and it has been great, and you've done a very good job of trying to keep just the questions that we have on the list, and I appreciate all that. And I guess I'm just asking questions to understand thoroughly, to make sure that the process, it keeps improving, because it has by a large measure from before. So I'm very appreciative of that.
Thank you.
Mr. Kaufman, keep forgetting your name. I've only known you 5 years, right?
Maybe even a little more. I have two things. The first thing is to ask the committee to bring forward at your next meeting a policy proposal that I prepared. I entitled it Exit, because it deals with a policy that happens when people exit the district. It deals with issues that we dealt with over the summer, and when people's emails are shut down, and perhaps how they're archived, and things along those lines. So I asked if you could please bring that forward.
I would ask if you have any backup documents that you would try to get
I've
it to
already
the committee.
submitted it to the board last.
Okay.
I'll see that you get it again. And if I'll have a second thing I want to talk about. This is as a result of having a conversation with Ms. Fitzpatrick in terms of the recruiting system, the online recruiting tool that the district uses, which is, what is it, AppleTrack or AppleTrack, whatever it is. And Ms. Fitzpatrick, I would just want to give you a chance to speak to this. You said that you have had good experiences with something called School Spring.
Yeah, and it's the educational website that lots of districts use, and it is nationwide, so you draw from a pool of educators all over the country. The thing I can't tell you is the difference in cost between AppleTrack and School Spring, so I wouldn't want to recommend something without knowing what the cost would be to the district. And also, I just got here, and AppleTrack is what's been used, and I know that Dana might have something to say about AppleTrack.
Mrs. O'Gara?
AppleTrack is an applicant tracking system for all our employees, not just teachers. We do advertise on School Spring. It goes through EdJobs. So the cost of EdJobs and the cost of School Spring is about the same cost. But EdJobs does give the information to School Spring, and it does appear on School Spring.
One of the reasons why I brought it up is I received a phone call from someone who had difficulty getting their information put into the system. And that was that's some of the feedback that was consistent with Ms. Fitzpatrick, was that it was difficult to use. And if the costs are the same, then I would like to see personally, I'd like to see a side-by-side between the two systems. Part of what I did in a previous life was user testing. So and I know that the particular individual was in the CTE area, and those qualifications are kind of different from the academic world and may not easily transfer over. So I just want to ensure that we can capture people can come and find not only the jobs posted on our website easily, but also when they apply that they can get through the system. And I guess since I just reminded myself of something, is there an update as to has that problem on the website been fixed?
What problem on the website?
About the posting of available jobs?
I didn't know there was a problem on the website about the posting of available jobs.
Oh, I had sent you an email maybe about a week ago. And when I went onto the website, the postings were from May of 2016. There was nothing that was current. It's about a week.
All our current postings that are still open are showing on the website. So I know Frontline has been updating some things this past week, so that might be it, because I did get a message.
My query was about 10 days ago.
Yeah,
So-
something about September 17th, so it may have been that, because Frontline is ASOP and AppleTrack. AppleTrack is
This was a web page. It had nothing to do with ASOP or AppleTrack. The actual web page is on the site.
So
So
and
when
that
you-
is the AppleTrack webpage. When you go under employment, that's AppleTrack.
I'll have to show you.
Okay.
I'll be over tomorrow or Wednesday.
But I just want to further clarify that AppleTrack is totally different product than EdJobs and School Spring. EdJobs and School Spring collect applicants for teaching in their materials.
And then they would still have to apply because everyone legally has to fill out our application. And School Spring and Ed Jobs do not provide an application. And on our application is a lot of important things. People have to sign and attest that they have not falsified any information. They have to answer questions about their criminal background, whether or not they've been arrested or convicted. They also give us information about whether or not they were employed by us before, if they have any relatives. That's a question that came from the board. So AppleTrack is an application process that allows you to attach your materials. Ed Jobs and School Spring is like, just like even Monster does it. They collect applicants on their website, but people still have to go and fill out our application.
Thank you for the clarification.
I'd like to go back to an earlier comment that you made about board policies on exiting. Some of those seem like procedures. They're administrative procedures, how we exit people from the school district. That would be an HR procedure.
Okay, so where are they then? You might remember, but okay, I'm sorry, I have to do this. So the reason why the policy draft that I put forward was done was because we just had some hanging fruit over the course of the summer that was not documented well and needed to be, I'll just say, tightened up. So not having seen anything in the board policies and not having received from the HR department the procedures that you use, which we talked about them being available and updated in May of this year. We haven't seen them. So not knowing that you might have a procedure, I went out and borrowed a policy from a school out in California and adapted it for possible use here. So if you have a procedure to present when we discuss that policy, I'm sure one can refer to the other or integrate them. But without having I think the board needs a very clear policy so that the HR department can implement whatever procedure it needs to fulfill it. I still think we need a policy.
So that might be, Mr. Hoffman, that there are some policies around the procedures. You do have a copy of before. You asked me to update all of them, which with all the administrative vacancies that we had and all the hiring, I was unable to update all of them, and there is quite a few.
There was about 60 of them, I remember
Yes,
that.
and you got copies of all of the original ones?
Yes.
Okay. So, if
Do I
there's
know
a, there
them all?
may
No,
be,
I did read
maybe
them at
you
the
and I
time.
can sit down and separately and weed out what could be a policy and what could be administrative procedure, and we could wrap it all up.
No, they
that
still
sound?
need to be updated and published on the website. So there's still quite a bit of work there. And you may recall that I offered to help. So that offer is still out there.
Okay. Are there any other comments, questions, concerns? Otherwise, we'll go back to Mrs. Oden's.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Good. I said aye too, didn't I? Thank you.
7:40.